I'm going to be talking about design and data, not necessarily data-driven design. I'm fairly old school. I've been doing digital product and service design for the last 16 years now. I used to run an agency here in Helsinki, and for the last 6 years, or almost 7 years now, I've been working with digital Foodie. And I'm leading the design operations there. Very quickly about Foodie. We are on-demand grocery experts, and the question obviously is what that means. We are a software company. We are doing online groceries solely, so online e-commerce platform, but just for groceries. We do data management layer, customer applications, fulfillment software, and delivery software. So we have a end-to-end stack. And as Lassi mentioned, we are operating not necessarily globally, but in Eastern Europe, UK, and the US most recently. We are approximately 50 people at the moment. We are constantly hiring, so as is everyone else. We have 6 offices, and the software is used approximately in 1,100 stores or more. I don't know. This is not the most recent number. And about the talk. So I'm going to be the grumpy guy today. Everyone else has been really happy. So that's going to be my part. I'm like I said, I'm a designer, and I like data, but I have massive problems with describing something as the key element to a design. And that relates to this image here. How many designers did we have? I know that this was asked in the previous presentation as well. Approximately half. Okay, good. This is not going to be a really in-depth thing. I am going to talk about basics, in the meaning that I would really like people to understand the basics of using data in design, and also to remind that it's not going to be all that we are going to use. I'll start with a quote. I have loads of them. The first one is from David Ogilvy, who's one of the reasons how the advertising world looks in these days. Is not a marketing conference, but he has a good background in research and in creative field. So I think this is a fairly on-point quote of how I as well see things. So I'm not going to read it to you. You can read it by yourself. But basically what he is trying to say that if you don't know how sales are done, you probably shouldn't be designing ads. Or like Facebook puts this, designing without research is like getting into a taxi and just saying drive. And obviously, as a designer, I like data. Not necessarily. Okay. Anyway, I like data, and I think that as a person who is working in the digital field, or apparently all of us are working in the digital field, we have a unique opportunity to use data as it's built into the whole thing that we are working with. It's basically just transactions between people, computers, and the web. And it's really easy to track. And I'm also really fortunate to work with a client field that is very much alike to the whole web thing, as grocery retails have been data focused for a long time. Everything you do in a store, in a physical store, has something to do with data. All the product selection, all the shelving, everything is based on data. It's not there just by accident. And the tools that they are using are way more advanced than I've seen in any of startups or even larger companies. However, the cranky part is that I still think that we are doing a lot of bad decisions based on data. And one of the key things is that I think that data is made too important in the decision making. And it's not just that it's made too important, but it's easily the wrong data is made too important. Great design relies on empathy and understanding of the user or the client or just people. And for example, analytics data has nothing to do with that. And as designers, we should be always asking why is somebody doing something, not what they are doing. And there is a massive difference between those things. I have a lot of Facebook quotes for some strange reason. Another one comes here. And this is basically the problem. So it's easier to make measurable things important than actually measure the important things. We have been talking a lot about KPIs and sales and things like that today. And even though KPIs are good to have, they shouldn't be the one thing driving the design. It's just, and especially in a world where the KPIs usually are very badly set, so to say. And this is and that's basically the reason. So the analytics we are using are usually missing context. We measure things like clicks or duration of the visit, or if somebody added something to the shopping cart, or if somebody did actually order something. All of this is just fine, but as the services get more fragmented, there are more uses than that, just that one thing. So it's not just that a good visitor comes and orders something. They might be there to look for something. They might be there to just visit the site, get some information about the product, and then come back and actually purchase that. And it's really hard to say if those visits are good or bad. If you have a 3-second visit to your site, you have no idea if that 3 seconds was good or bad. If that had the exactly right information that the user was looking for, or if they came and looked like, okay, I'm done, out. If you have a really good design, that 3 seconds might be actually what they are looking for. And about this analytics data, which in my view are missing context, because we don't know what the user is actually trying to achieve. The second thing, which is completely wrong, is that then we go and force causalities of these things. So, and then we are up with charts like this, which obviously hasn't those two charts have nothing to do with each other, but you have 99.79% correlates. And this is what we do. And obviously this is a joke, but there are instances where people have been doing testing. Etsy has one of the most public fuck-ups with this, where they did a site redesign and everything went extremely well and they were really happy until they found out that they actually did have nothing to do with it. So the data that they got had nothing to do with the design. It was just something else that happened during the same time that drove a lot of people to using their service. And this is, so data is also not neutral. So if we go and measure things, force some kind of view of those things, it's easy to go into a mindset where we are using the analytics data or whatever data in a way that bankers are using quarterly results. So it's basically trying to find out the right variable to say that this is good design. And that's not a good way to go. Famously, Ronald Coase said, if you torture the data long enough, it will confess to anything. I'm going to run out of time. And to put this in another way, yet another Facebook quote is that data analytics will never be a substitute for design intuition. Data can help you make a good design great, but it will never make a bad design good. A/B testing is a really good example of this. First of all, I'm going to say it out loud. I think A/B testing, in sense, is not design at all. A/B testing is a way to either optimize your flow or validate some small things, but it's not design. Again, more quotes. Fail fast is a mantra of the software industry. The surest way to achieve the goal is by basing your product design on guesses. Sorry about that. And now that I've been being ranty and grumpy, there is a way to use data in design, and it's also a important part of the design process. Data, so we shouldn't be based on guessing things. Data, I've actually loved the Supersol data informed thing. It was really good. I think should be renamed to being data informed. So if we take this is one way of going through the design process. I know there are a lot of lean ways, but this is one way of looking at a design process. So you have discover, define, develop, deliver. or research synthesis, ideation, and implementation. And obviously, it's not just a pipeline that gets designed through. You have to iterate on things. But in the first part, you build, so you are now working on designing the right thing. And you are in the discovery phase. And data has a massively big part in that phase. There are things that you cannot guess. There are user studies made in, for example, in a region that you don't know, or in an industry that you don't know. And it's like that research data that you need to have, and it's not analytics in any way, because analytics is answering what happened, not why things are happening. I still have 4 minutes. I was working on a project in the US targeted for Latinos. I have zero idea how they use the web. And there is no analytics data that will tell me that. You need to go and get that research and get that information and preferably talk to the people that you are trying to set up the service for. Equally important, when you go to the define phase, then you have obviously some KPIs, you do some validation with the users, with the stakeholders, with your clients, and again, defining why are we doing this? Not what we are doing, why are we doing this? There's a massive difference. And I skipped the third part for a reason. That's where you don't need data. That's the ideation part. You should have all that insight by that middle line already. Then you go and do things, and you hopefully know what you are already doing or what you're trying to achieve. And then you start the implementation phase, which isn't something that will be just one thing, that will go through iterations. It will get tested. You will talk to users, try things out, see what works, what doesn't. And then at some point, when you actually do launch it, then you also need to look at the data. Then it's analytics data. It still doesn't answer you why people are doing that, but what they're doing is important there as well. And as a side note, good design is not defined as no one had problems with it in usability testing. So you need to actually know what you're doing. Then, moving on, I have 2 minutes. Data from the design point of view. So that was all of the design part in a sense, but moving on, so data is becoming more important. And there are, like Lassi mentioned earlier, there are fairly interesting things. So generative design, for example, this is, so basically the idea is that we use massive amounts of data, relevant models, artificial intelligence or whatever, big computers, and we get tons of designs. This is from Autodesk. They are doing that for physical things, so they can actually test all kinds of interesting things if that design would work within those parameters. But then there is also something that Lassi mentioned earlier, which is the same, basically the same thing. It's done here in Finland by Otto Virta and his research team. That's their website. Everyone should go and check it out. And they're basically doing these modelers for data and understanding what works and what does not work. And they are doing a pretty good job at it. It is fairly interesting, and in the long run, far, far away from today, they might actually manage to do some kind of self-designing systems with that thing, which is really interesting. They are going to face these same challenges, although they are actually using proven models for handling the data. They're still going to have these problems with why people are actually working in the way, or why a person is doing something that they are doing. And then from the design point of view, data, I cannot go this untouched. So data is also a material for us now. So besides using that in making things validated, it's something that we will and should use in our designs. This is one of the examples. And this is one. So Amazon is, for example, rearranging order shelves in a random order now, because the orders are random, and if you have storage big enough, you will have exactly what somebody ordered in one shelf. And this is data. This works. This works better than the organized shelves. And from the interaction point of view, in a few years' time, it's probably not this, but it's going to be something else. We need to have data that actually understands the context. In case somebody asks for a pizza, what does that pizza mean to a device, whatever it is? And how do they know when to deliver that, and where and when? And that's data as well. And I'm going to end up in a quote. The strength of design is that it proves a way of thinking in advance of the consciousness of our actions on materials, and this is something that I would really like everyone to understand. And the thinking in advance part is the important part. And I really don't like to see that designers are using data to distance themselves from the responsibility that they have for their designs. And that's it. Rant over. Thank you.